Yes, Jim Henderson is the head at Woodlands. And as I think most of you know, Woodlands support nearly all our youth competitions. And I thought it would be helpful if tonight he could tell us briefly about what it's like looking after a school through the pandemic, and also what he feels about the youth competitions and how they help Woodlands.
Right, just unmuting myself. So, first of all, can I say good evening, everybody? And I wanted to say, actually, that was a really lovely half an hour listening to Claire, and actually hearing those stories from those two girls, Megan and Aaliyah, who I know very well, and they really did kind of write that from the heart. I mean, I've watched Aaliyah dance, and she is so passionate about her dancing. To hear that as a happy place that she wrote about so well, it was really touching. Yeah, we love getting involved, and I know students absolutely were over the moon about winning. Megan was so pleased, and her parents were so pleased, and Aaliyah was so pleased. So I wanted to say well done to them, but also a big thank you to Zara Price, who was going to be here tonight. She's the one who's kind of launched this within her own department and wanted to really to get students writing about things which really were passionate about. So you've asked me to talk about what life has been like at Woodlands over the last year. Well, I guess the best way to describe it is the school now is absolutely nothing like you would have seen it a year ago. So if I just give you a kind of an impression, when a student comes in the morning now, they have to come in at a different route. They have to come in a different part of the school. They are met, so they have a year 9 will come into one area and I'll meet them, and every student is hand sanitized as they get through the door. They go and wait in one area. They then have to stay in one bubbled area for the rest of the day and one classroom, which they don't move around classrooms at all. Now, all of this is completely different to what it would have been a year ago. And all of it, as you can imagine, is about safety of students and to make sure there's no cross-contamination. So the whole of this year has been far more about preventing infection, keeping students safe, keeping our communities safe, than it has been about the things which schools usually prioritize, which are the education of students, the well-being of students. And that's been a challenge in many ways. And I think for us, the most important things, I mean, in terms of online learning, the first lockdown was very difficult. And we went into it, we didn't have the IT, we didn't have the things we needed. And the government was saying they were about to give out, if you remember, they said, I think it was April or something last year, they were going to give out so many laptops. We didn't really get those until much later. And the second lockdown, we were completely the opposite way around. You could easily get the laptops for the students, and we were able to get the students to access all the work. But in the midst of all those lockdowns, we had the students having to take exams. And if you also recall, we had those year 11 exams, I think it was the day before we were going, they changed their minds of what was going to happen for how they were going to be assessed. And so they had no idea what was going to happen. And the stress, can you imagine the stress of that? It's stressful enough in year 11 for what your exams are going to be. And then you're going to get the government changing their minds the night before about what's going to happen. It was all very, very difficult for them. So I think the impact of all of that has been on students and their mental health. And I would say that it's probably very noticeable now how much more we've had to put in place to help students when they come into school. We've had so many more students suffering from anxiety, students who find it difficult to cope with their emotions, because it's like all of us, and no one likes being on their own, and it's a horrible experience. But for students, they come alive when they're in their big groups with people and friends, and not having that for so long. And especially, I mean, imagine the little ones as well. I can imagine that was really difficult for their development, the much younger ones. So, yeah, it's not been all doom and gloom. I won't say that. I think I've been amazed by how resilient some of our students have been. I've been amazed at how our staff have got through this. I mean, there were times when my staff were going down 3 or 4 people a week with the most horrible illness with COVID, and we were still going. We were having to keep open, and they were really resilient. We didn't actually have to at any point send a bubble of a year group home, which was great. We did this, the things we put in place kept everybody in there. So all of those things were good. The online learning, we worked out different ways, and I don't know if you've seen us on Twitter or on our Facebook page, but we worked out different ways of celebrating within our community. So we would do challenges each week where we would do different things for students would get involved with, just so we could still create a sense of community with the school, even though we weren't all together at times. So yeah, we really felt that we had to keep that sense, and therefore when the students come back, it wouldn't be like going back to school after so many weeks and not knowing what to do. So I think overall, although it's been a horrible experience, I think we all learned a lot from it. And I must say, I did ask my business manager, what actually did we received so much from different people, from different organisations, and the Rotary, I was amazed when she wrote down what we got in donations. So we had donations for the food bank, because we went out all the time to all different parents in the community with food bank, foods for all of them. We had sets of calculators given to us. We had £500 for a dolphin sculpture event, £350 for bedrock learning, which is going to be helping students recover some of the lost vocabulary learning, which we had over last year. 8 10-kilo bags of plain flour, 100 bars of chocolate. It just goes on, and it's absolutely amazing. And I wanted to thank everybody for for all the generosity, because if it wasn't for that, our students would be missing out, and it made us feel, and it made them feel, that people cared. And I think that's the really important thing. So what I said I'd do tonight would be, there'd be different aspects of maybe questions. I thought answer any questions you wanted to ask about what life has been like. I know you hear sometimes on the TV about schools, and it's just I don't know if it would be worth me answering any questions about what actually really was like for us at Woodlands.
Can I ask you, Jim? How much of the sort of the distance learning do you think is going to continue? Is that going to be relevant to you in the future, like it is going to be in business? Do you think?
It's one of the things which I think once you've experienced it, then you want to continue to some degree. So this format, for example, having a Zoom or using Teams or something like that, or Google Classroom we've used, to use that to virtually teach students. You wouldn't, although nothing replaces face-to-face teaching, but to have that as a skill now that we didn't have before, to be able to work with students who are not able to get into school. We do have students who are in hospital and not able to access face-to-face school. It's absolutely brilliant. We've learned a lot, and I think it will continue that way in the future. What I really hope is we'll never get back to another lockdown, and therefore we won't have to do it for everybody again. And I think that isn't going to really be certain for a bit, but until I think I've got about 40% of the staff at school now who have been vaccinated. And I think when that number grows, I think it'll be easier. I think they're also talking about as well, so that would be great.
Thanks, Jim. James.
Good evening, Mr. Henderson. If we get access to any more goodies like the flour and chocolate, do you still see a need carrying on at the school, and would you like it?
Absolutely. There's always a need, certainly with the food technology and the aspects of the ingredients. Yeah.
And how long do you think you'll be continuing to run like a food bank? Because I know you are running one, aren't you? So
Yeah.
do you see that as continuing as well?
We run a food bank nearly all the time anyway. It's been bigger and more widespread over the last year. What we've had though is we've got other aspects of it now. So we do have the free school meal voucher system, which is now continuing. So that, and we have a winter fund which pays for vouchers for parents during the holidays now, which again hadn't happened early on in the year. So we have got other aspects to help, and we're also running Easter provision for children in the area to come in, be on site at Woodlands, get a hot meal, do some physical exercise, enjoy being together again. All of that's going to happen. That the plan is to keep that going in the summer months as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Claire.
Yeah, could I ask Jim a question? Mr. Henderson, sorry, it's a bit rude of me, isn't it? My son is a teacher. He teaches at primary level, but he's a teacher. And he was saying the one small benefit they've found is that some of the students who need a session repeated, when it's been online, they're able to look at it and access it. And, instead of having not understood a live session, they've been able to go back and look at it again and again and pick up on it. Are you finding the same at secondary level?
Yeah, it's a real benefit. It's something that's happened in universities for a long time. So if you miss something, you can go online, can't you, and do it again. But that's now. I mean, we've got. I don't know if you heard of the Oak Academy. That was something the government put in place, and it's like for every subject they've got lessons for every element of that subject, and that is kind of an example of exactly how that can benefit students. Because if you miss something in a lesson, you can just go onto that at night time, half an hour work on it, and it explains it. You've got a teacher running you, and we've done our own videos, we've done live lessons, etc. There's a real benefit to it. So there's so many things at the moment. What I'm doing is working with my senior leaders to pick out what we're going to keep, because there's so many good things we're going to keep, because we've learned through a hardship of it, but it's definitely some very interesting things to keep going for next year.
It's put a huge load on teachers though, hasn't it, to be doing all these extra things and learning how to sort of interact with all these different things.
I think, yeah, it's been very, very stressful for teachers. I think physically demanding more than has ever been before. For example, if students stay in one class but have lots of different subject specialists, then the teachers have got to move around the school all the day. So they're moving, not the students. So physically quite demanding. It's been nerve-wracking for members of staff. So certainly the 2 weeks ago, I had quite a few conversations with some very anxious staff coming back into school. And at certain points, it's just, you feel like you're going into an environment where there's a real risk, and they weren't protected.
Yeah.
So
Staff,
I think staff have suffered.
Yeah, it's a pity they didn't vaccinate teachers and make it a priority, really.
Yeah, they kept saying that schools were safe. Well, actually, it's the teachers who make them safe, and they make them safe for the students. So sometimes maybe putting themselves more at risk in that situation. That's the shame of it.
Yeah.
Have you had many teachers who've had COVID, Jim?
Yeah, about 10 to 15. Most happened. I had very few cases before Christmas, and I think we only had one student case before Christmas. But after that Christmas spell, it went really very quickly, very badly. We had about five members of staff off, didn't come back from Christmas. And actually, luckily, the government then closed everything down after a day, but they were going to bring us all back in on that first day. So there was a real worry at that point what was going to happen. But no, I mean, touch wood, no one has been seriously hurt by it. And I think that's the most important. They've all come back. They've all learned from the experience, and now they're all starting to have their vaccinations. And
anybody? Okay, Roger.
Yeah, you've mentioned about the anxiety and mental health of the students a couple of times, and I know it's not the school isn't the only party involved there, but do you think there are resources both at your school and in the round to actually provide help to those students who have suffered from mental health problems during the recession? Or is something extra needed?
Yeah, I missed quite a bit of the start of that, Roger, because I think it was my computer was not working well. I think the mental health side of things, we were always strong in school with that. We used links, we used young carers, we've used No Limits. We used lots of different organisations coming and work with our students, and we've been able to tap into that still. What we haven't got enough of is the more extreme cases we are now getting of students who need one-to-one check-ins and one-to-one counselling. There isn't enough in the city, there's not enough in the country of mental health work. CAMS is usually the route to do that, and CAMS currently is very difficult and a big waiting list for getting students to be on to get support. So that there is a big issue there, and I think the government will eventually have to do something, because it won't be just us in that position.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much worse in areas that are more deprived, like the Harefield area. What they experienced in that time for some of those students was pretty horrific, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll now call on the Speaker Secretary to give Jim a vote of thanks.
Oh, well, it's great to hear what's actually sort of improved in schools and how you've managed to get to grips with everything that's been thrown at you over the last year. I mean, we hear a lot on television, as you say, but we don't really see what you're telling us today. And as a retired teacher, I'm very glad I am retired, because I don't think I would like to have had to live through all of that. So thanks ever so much for coming tonight and giving us a really true picture of just how you're having to organise your school and how you're having to sort of work day by day in working out what comes next. So I think you're doing a brilliant job, and thank you very much indeed.
Come in.